Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence for the men and women of the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in the Ukraine, and those poor individuals that lost their lives in the earthquake in Syria and in Turkey. Thank you.
Mike Sanello.
Who just called it, brother?
I did Barbara, I am play. Thanks for checking.
So, Mike Sanello, 111 Willow Springs. So I was asked to speak on this, so please forgive me if it's as folks know, this is being live streamed and broadcasted simultaneously to both Facebook and YouTube, for the town's YouTube channel and the town's Facebook page for everybody's convenience. For those watching the stream at home and also participating via call-in with the call-in device, if you could please mute YouTube or Facebook stream. Also, one way to alleviate the feedback issue would be to mute your phone or to use the instructions within the call-in to mute and unmute yourself. The other way to alleviate that issue would be just to use headphones for whatever you wind up watching. There is a 7-second delay if you're watching on YouTube. It's a little bit longer on Facebook. So it's really not helpful to get the sound from YouTube if you're trying to participate in the meeting. Anyways. To that effect as well, tonight, to the members of the town council that are here and to the members of the Board of Finance, if feedback issues arise and it becomes a need to either significantly decline the volume of the speaker, I would be happy if anyone to speak up at any moment, shout across the room if it needs to be, and I'll turn it way down. If it needs to be completely muted, again, speak up and I'll hurry over there and get it muted. For those at home who are participating via call-in, if I need to turn the volume down significantly, I'll let you know through the device as quickly as I can to simply speak up quite loudly if you'd like to participate. And again, for everyone in the room, it's fairly easy for me to manipulate that if need be. Do just speak up. That's what I said. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Is anyone else on the call other than Diane and Chris?
Thomas Esposito.
Thomas Esposito and who else?
No.
Oh, and Doug.
And Diane.
Greg also.
Oh, right.
And then we'll probably participation.
Okay, great. Walter, I'll let you open with the Board of Finance first.
Motion to reconvene the Board of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion for the town council to reconvene.
So moved.
There's a second for Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to Noreen, town clerk. Hi, Noreen.
So we're going to start with the revenue.
We have historic documents, 15,000. The local capital improvement projects, 9,000. And then the revenue from the town clerk fees is 620,000. So that's a total of 644,000 for our revenues. Then the expenditures, we have personnel, $195,073. We have town clerk overtime, $200. And then contractual services, $1,195. And then the historic preservation, $7,500, which is what we get for our grant money every year from the state. And then we have materials and supplies. It includes our indexing of the land records, vitals, binders, paper, publishing, legals, and that's $44,100. So the total expenditures is $248,068. So summary, The revenue is $644,000, and our expenditures are $248.68. So our profit is $395,932.
Any questions for Noreen? Okay.
I have just one question for Noreen.
Yes, Chris.
The drop in revenues, is that what we're thinking, on economic downturn coming?
Yes, definitely. The recordings are not near as high as they were last year. Now and then we'll get a couple good sales with conveyance, but I can't go by last year's figures. They were much higher. So I'd rather
Okay.
be that we get more than I say than not what I say. So.
Okay,
And
great.
Chris, to
Thank
answer
you.
your question, as Noreen had said, so we're looking for today's figures. Right now, we had budgeted $675,000 for revenues for this year. Currently, we're at $437,151.
So,
Okay, any other questions for Noreen? Thank you,
yeah.
Noreen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Next is Jason, Youth Agency.
Can you just read the folks who are with you, please,
Yeah.
once you're ready?
Yeah, give me.
So, Jason O'Connor, Director of the New Milford Youth Agency, and we have our chairperson, Maureen Price, and then we have our vice chair, Heidi Adele, and they are sitting right there behind me. So good evening, Mayor, good evening, members of Town Council, good evening, members of Board of Finance. My name is Jason O'Connor, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Milford Youth Agency. So tonight we are going to be looking at three organizations that the youth agency is responsible for and a synopsis of our programs. Before we get started, who is the youth agency? We are 11 full-time staff members as well as 30 to 40 part-time high school and college age staff. We are a youth service bureau, so we are governed under state statute. We look to implement prevention-based programs, surveys. We look to increase services for populations marginalized and vulnerable here in New Milford. So beginning with that, one of our great programs here is the Juvenile Review Board. That is for first-time youthful offenders, as well as anyone else in our youthful community here going through the criminal justice system. We sit in restorative practice manner. We have members of our police, members of our Waterbury court system, school officials, and then we have members of the public sitting in, as well as the youth and family. The reason we include youth and family is so we get that input from the youth and family. We can't help the youth and family without their input, and provide the best recommendations to move forward and offer how to rehabilitate the situation. Counseling services, we offer no-cost counseling services for adolescent youth here in town, and that came out of looking at the youth behaviors with the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw increases in stress, anxiety, school phobia, anger management, conflict resolution. We offer youth leadership and positive youth development with our student advisory board, parent workshops including cybersecurity, internet safety, peer-to-peer mentoring. We have our high school students mentor Schaghticoke Middle School as well as Sarah Noble age student populations. Our youth groups and workshops, we have girls groups, LGBTQI peer groups, and we hold one of, if not the largest childcare program here in town, and that is our before and after school program, as well as our summer care. The Max is available for rentals and events, as well as our teen center. Youth culinary programs are held there. Our video program is one of, I think, the coolest and neatest program we have. It is staffed by youth who provide prevention-based podcasts on subjects including vaping, including what's it like to live in foster care and many others. And that can be found on our website. It's a phenomenal program. And not only here in New Milford, but regionally, the youth agency is being seen as the leader in youth service bureaus in our region, where myself, I sit as the Northwest Region Representative for CYSA, that's the Connecticut Youth Services Association, as well as the LIST, which is the Local Interagency Service Teams, and that's for juvenile justice. Budget. So again, the youth agency has 3 budgets, or 3 organizations within the budget. Up here are both expenses and revenues. So under the youth agency, our primary and only revenue is the State Youth Service Bureau grant that we get from the state of Connecticut. And that is $30,569. That's determined by the state of Connecticut. We really don't have a say in that. Personnel is $284,792.35. Fixed charges consultants, materials and supplies, and part self-sustaining youth grant. That part self-sustaining youth grant, that is the revenue or is the expense to offset the revenue of the state grant, as well as a mandatory match by the municipality set forth by the state of Connecticut for the state youth service bureau grant. So that's why that totals $50,467. And these numbers are unchanged from last year, aside from the personnel number, which include the non-union salary increases and adjustments that were provided this fiscal year.
Jason, too, it's also for, in the personnel is the requirement for minimum wage, correct?
Yes, that's going to be in our before and after school. You're going to see that big number, and that's upfront $30,000. The max. So we have the revenue, and then our personnel or our expenses under it. The mayor and I looked at the revenue, and we thought we could do better than this year, so we were at $35,000 this year, and we're bumping it up to $40,000. And the belief on that is that right now we are on track to hit the $40,000 revenue of this fiscal year, and that's because we're unfortunately looking into early of 22 into 23, we're still dealing with the pandemic. So now that the pandemic is subsiding, we're looking at increased revenues there, so we're going to be able to hit that target number. Contractual services, materials and supplies remain, actually there's a $1,000 increase from last year on the contractual services, and that's for our police officers that we hire for large events at the Max, team dances, programs run on the town green. And that would bring us into a revenue of $19,900 with this budget. Before and after school care program, this is where Mayor Bass had just mentioned that within the program itself, there is going to be a $30,000 minimum wage increase, and this is the final minimum wage increase because it's going to $15. And we've been having to budget each year from that budget increase of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So now we are in that last wave, and that makes up about $22,000 in the summer with the $8,000 for the school year program. And then I'll give you just, because that line did increase. So the reason for the personnel increase or the whole total increase in this budget, because the revenues, this is a completely self-sustaining budget in the sense that all expenses, personnel, materials, and supplies have to be covered by the revenue made for this program. So some of the increases we saw were the non-union salary adjustments, pre-K, materials and supplies increase due to busing, that was $1,000. Schaghticoke Middle School new staff member at our site at Schaghticoke. And the reason for that new staff member is last year we only had the budget for 12 students in that program. We're currently budgeting 17 to 20 students. And that is because during COVID, there was more informal care for those older students. However, that informal care is going away. And we are predicting increased fifth graders going into the Schaghticoke population, as well as retaining sixth graders going to seventh grade. And then that would total up to the $69,000 increase for that budget. The one other program that I just mentioned is that the youth agency is looking to, or actually we will be offering a pre-K program at the John Pettibone Community Center. And this was after doing an environmental scan, as well as just working with parents every day here in the community. There's a high need for high quality childcare and preschool programming here. The demographic would truly allow us in our Youth Service Bureau to service essentially birth to 18. It's a program we've never offered before, and it's a great opportunity for growth for the town. And primarily those students, so we're looking into the pilot year for that. It's gonna be about 15 students at John Pettibone. We are increasing salary and hours essentially of 2 of our existing site supervisors. That's why you see the increase in those personnel lines. And those 2 site supervisors will do Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 hours a day to offer that pre-K program. These are the students that don't essentially need the full day care, or they can't afford the daycare prices, as well as students that may not qualify for the Head Start or Excel. And with that, that's why this zeroes out to the $0 budget, in the sense that all expenses are covered by the revenue of the program, whether it's our before and after school, our summer care, and now pre-K program. If you'd like me to expand on anything or questions.
Any questions for Jason? Katie?
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Katie.
Complete, as always. Quick question on the pre-K. Are you going to have, you mentioned people who can't afford, are you going to do a sliding scale based upon income?
Right now, for the funding, there is no sliding scale. What we've been utilizing for scholarships is the ARPA money set aside for childcare. So that has been utilized within our own childcare operations at the youth agency.
Right.
But to give an idea of the funding, the cost to families would be $20 per class, 2 classes a week, so that's $40 a week.
Okay.
For a total of $1,600 a year.
And can they come one day if they like? Or is it minimum
No,
2?
because we're going to look into,
Right.
because there is the need, so we would rather fill the slots to have.
Okay, so
been there
will
for
you be
twice.
eligible to receive grants? I mean, will you be a registered provider?
No, because since deemed by OEC, Office of Early
Right.
Childhood with the state of
Yes.
Connecticut, since we are under the municipality,
Right.
we have not had to be licensed, and during those conversations with them, we are not licensed with this.
Right.
However, there has been conversations with us and OEC saying, hey, we'd really like you to get back into the state-funded scholarship opportunities for,
Yes.
for childcare. And so Brian and I are looking into that. There used to be very strict licensing requirements that we weren't able to essentially meet because we're in the schools, so we don't control the water temperature. We don't control the
Right.
heat. There's just things that are out of our control. However, those things have become less stringent since COVID, so this is just an opportunity we are looking at.
I did discuss a little of this with Brian for the other, the prior, so this would be great,
Yeah,
great opportunity.
we're very excited for it.
Good.
Walter?
My education is lacking a little bit here. Social worker going from 56K to 44. Social worker, 40 hours, position with 30 hours. Youth agency, 10 hours. ARPA. Educate me, I'm a little confused
Is that-
about that.
Is that social services, Walter?
No, youth agency.
Youth agency?
Number
Oh, that's page 164.
51,050.
So with that position, that was established through the youth agencies looking at the COVID response in that presentation of looking to expand our counseling services. So with that, we were able to, that was a 30-hour position originally, and then we were able to utilize ARPA funding from the town of New Milford to increase that position to 40 hours, with the 10 hours being funded and subsidized by the ARPA money, with 30 hours of it being paid by the youth agency's general fund. So currently it's at $44,136.46, with the remaining 10 hours coming out of the ARPA.
and this social worker, so that the town council and the Board of Finance can understand, the social worker is basically really doing what?
So this position existed in the youth agency as a program-based staff member, offering groups, service provision, referrals, supporting different various support groups. What they've done now in those 10 hours is we've expanded those 10 hours to provide no-cost counseling services. So that individual is an LMSW, a licensed Master of Social Work, and she's supervised by a contracted clinical director, so we can provide those clinical services. So not only are we still providing these support groups, as well as Sarah going into the schools and providing groups, she's expanded her job to provide both youth and family counseling services.
And Walter, one of the things we uncovered when Jason and I were speaking with the social workers in the high school and at Scatticoke School was, as we all know, when we went from hybrid learning to full out staying at home, that kids have stress issues, mental health, they have social anxiety. And I had asked Jason, I said, what can we do on the town side? The Board of Education is working on their behalf with clinics that they're going to be doing, which you'll be hearing about when they present. But we wanted to do something here on the town, and then also doing it for people that can't afford it.
Okay.
So for those that are underserved.
Correct. And
So,
it's,
thank you, Jason.
as Mayor Best said, it's no cost. So to walk you through, these are the students with general anxiety, stress, the school phobia, maybe relationship issues with their peers. What we do is we do an intake, and if they are appropriate for our services, we go ahead and schedule them. However, if they may need a higher level of care, maybe there's extreme substance use, PTSD, suicidal ideations, you name it, we provide not only 3 referrals, as well as try and walk them through in contacting those referrals, just so that continuity of care is there.
Thank you.
Walter?
Just following up on the mayor's point, you and I have talked in the past about how COVID had affected the youth, especially the younger. With the pandemic going down, are you seeing any improvement or in the issues that they came up with, socialization, for example, or is it still, they've got a lot to catch up?
I wouldn't say there's a lot to catch up. There's still, as we see it in our schools and in the just school-age populations, interpersonal relationship skills are definitely still decreased. Conflict resolution skills are still decreased. Students are still getting used to being back in school, getting into that kind of regimented class schedule of having to go to different classes or having to walk out to recess. So there still is that delay that we are seeing of, in the sense, if you think about it, COVID affected about 2 years of their learning and in their development as a child. So some students perhaps may be developing or mentally developed as an 8th grader when they're actually in 10th grade. So they're troubleshooting situations in 10th grade as an 8th grader because they lacked for 2 years almost that interpersonal skills of how to troubleshoot and how to almost live in real life as that 10th grader. So yeah, Walter, we definitely are seeing some of that behavior, but that's not to say that our kids aren't resilient, the kids aren't strong, and we've seen substantial growth and healing from our youth, because kids are very impressive and they're amazing to work with. So basically, to answer your question, yes, there is still that, but I think if we look to the youth as the example, they're extraordinary, and they've come out of this, I'd say, better than us adults.
And Jason, I know, during the height of the pandemic, we opened this up.
Mm-hmm.
If you could give some success stories, I know we can't get into the particulars,
Absolutely.
but I know you've had success already in helping some of our youth.
Absolutely. We keep a steady enrollment around essentially 10 to 12 youth that we're helping, and that's because we're able to discharge students, and that discharge comes with them learning whether it's their social skills, whether it's conflict resolution, but they're returning and learning these cognitive and behavioral skill sets that we're able to discharge them. And we're able to talk to those families that came to us kind of at wit's end saying, I don't know what to do, or my child doesn't know what to do. And so it's very powerful. And I know a lot of, there's many shared stories within the community of people who offer counseling services. But that's been great in the sense, not only helping those kids succeed and move on, but still working with the kids that still need it. We have a couple still students that have been working with us for longer than they could have received that care if it was billed by insurance or if they were being charged. So we're able to keep on students that normally would have not been able to receive this care for their social anxiety or family or relationship issues.
Thank you, Jason. Katie?
Yeah, obviously, I know you make a big impact over there, all of you.
I have a question. This is Diane Clay calling in remotely.
Diane, hang on one second.
Okay.
How do you see the bullying trend? I don't want to call it a trend, but I think it started and it's still going, so hopefully it'll stop.
So I
know
think,
your workshops are good.
No,
and-
workshops are good.
Yeah.
I believe it's, Mayor Bass and I were talking about this last night on the Weekly with Pete. It's practicing what we preach as adults as well, having those conversations. We have a substantial amount of prevention and educational opportunities too at the youth agency. I mentioned before, we have a prevention-based podcast that has a slew of topics of local leaders here in town, whether it's our local hospitals, our local care providers. We had WestCon come and give a whole explanation on being a first-year college student. Naugatuck Valley gave a conversation on how to pay for college for free, essentially. There's a lot of stuff out there that, whether it's the youth agency, whether it's other youth-serving organizations here in town, that I think parents, adults, we should just be promoting more and getting it out there, because that stuff is really good stuff. And having those real conversations with youth as well, whether it's on substances, whether it's on behavioral bullying, being an upstander. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing that upstander training, is because it's tough to be an upstander, to stand in the middle of someone being bullied, to do it safely and appropriately. Those are not easy skill sets, and not everyone will be doing that. So it's I guess, promoting our established prevention-based programming, as well as adding and looking to provide additional programs where we see they're needed.
And it's helping.
Yes.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Diane?
Thank you, Pete. So I apologize for calling in remotely, Jason. I didn't have a choice tonight, and I can only hear about every third word. So if anyone else has asked this question, I apologize. So I just want to say you guys are doing a great job. My daughter is a kindergarten teacher in New Jersey, and after the pandemic, she would call me in tears pretty much every night to tell me various things that had happened, because her children are just completely unsocialized. And I would say to her, Kelly, did anyone die today? And she would say, of course not, Mom. And I was like, then you had a good day. But, okay, so I'm looking at page 168, and again, I apologize if anyone zoned in on this question. The self-sustaining program, where your budget is calling for $2,500 for after-school enrichment
Yes.
program for school-aged children, that has dropped significantly from the year before. And I'd just like to know, why? What's the difference?
So thank you, Diane. And am I skipping any more, or?
Yeah, I can hear every third word, but go ahead.
So what that is that money was put into that line in the previous years so we could offer scholarships for children going into our child care program. However, that wasn't the best mechanism while working with the mayor's office and finance department in providing those scholarships, because we technically weren't collecting any revenue for that expense. What we've been utilizing are external grants, whether it's through the Connecticut Community Foundation, United Way, or currently we're utilizing the ARPA money set aside for childcare support. That is the way that we're able to actually get check in hand or cash to provide these scholarships. If not, it's the childcare revenue provided by that whole organization that would have to provide the coverage for that expense of the $7,000. So that's why this fiscal year we pulled that money out, because there was no true town mechanism to pay itself for that.
I understand. Great explanation. Thank you very much.
No problem. I know that's kind of a tricky one.
Yeah, it made no sense to me, but you totally explained it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason?
This
Joe?
is Chris. I have a question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
So Jason, great job. The revenue on the max, the 40K, it seems to me that's a lot higher than we were getting before COVID hit. Are we using the max differently or more than we did before COVID?
Yes, I would say the max has been revitalized, and we're seeing an increase in rentals, as well as we've expanded to rentals of the kitchen, which has provided the agency and the municipality another source of income. Let me just pull this up for you, Chris. So the mayor's recommendation of that increase to $40,000, that would essentially have an average of $3,333.33 a month to hit that. Currently, we're at $26,000 in revenue for this fiscal year, which is at $3,300. So the trajectory is already there, and it's looking promising. So that is why the mayor and myself were looking at actually trying to hit that increased revenue of from $35,000 to $40,000.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe?
Okay, so I actually have two questions. The first one, we'll do the budgeting one first. The other one is just about how you operate. So I have actually a question about that. The budget, all right, I want to understand the social worker line, because there's already a question about that. So this is really a $58,000 a year position for the town, right? And
Correct.
you're just reflecting 10 hours of revenue because it's applied to that line. Right? You're applying $14,000, roughly $15,000 of ARPA revenue to subsidize the $58,000 a year position.
The 10 hours, correct.
Okay.
Because it was originally a 30-hour position going back before last fiscal year, because this position was in last fiscal year.
All right, say that again.
So going back to, it would have been the 21-22 budget. That was when it was a 30-hour. And then we were able to, in the 22-23, do the 30 hours plus the 10 hours of ARPA to have this position in total go to 40 hours.
All right, I'm going to have to find that one. I had it here a second ago. Okay, I will find it. So, but in the 23 budget, there's a social worker that's $56,000. That's not the same position.
I got a lot of papers.
Okay, 1-900 personnel. Oh, I don't have a breakout. Okay. 254. Yeah, it's got to be in the same line item.
Yeah, it's the same line. It's 5100. Yeah, item 50. So what's your specific question?
So that person works for the town 40 hours a week,
Yes.
right? Is the $44,000 their salary, and I then take $10,000 or $11,000 off of that? Right?
No, you would add, because that's their hours that's their salary at 30 hours.
That's their salary. And is the ARPA revenue shown somewhere else in your revenue as well? Because that's really what I'm
The
looking for.
the ARPA revenue would not be seen in the general fund under the youth agency
It's
org.
not operating.
Right.
It's not in the
ARPA
budget at all. So that
Correct.
ARPA funding should
For
not be
anybody.
shown on this line then, right?
Well, you wanted to explain to the public, that's why you have a less number, which is what Walter was asking. So that's why you see less of a number this
Right.
year compared to last year, because
Because ARPA's not.
Do we
We're
do that
using
somewhere
ARPA
else in the
funding.
budget that we could point to?
For
All the
ARPA?
money is.
No, ARPA isn't is not operating funds.
From last year.
That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, right, but this makes sense, right? This is reflecting, all right, so this is a perfect example, right? This is last year's budget. We have the social worker, 56,000, 264.83. And then we're applying to that personnel line item, the 5100 category, $14,066. Now that makes sense because that's reflecting the actual salary, because we're not calculating the benefits, we're not calculating the hours. Sorry. The benefits and the hours and all that sort of stuff on that line item. So, in reality, that's a $58,000 a year line item, right?
So what I have, and I don't know why it's not showing here, that social worker was at 41,371 in 21-22, and then 42,198 in 22-23, and then 44,136 in this current budget. So those 40 hours were never budgeted within this
They don't
line.
see it. We don't have that in our book, unfortunately,
Yeah.
Jason. There was a clerical thing that we don't see the past years.
Correct.
So what he's telling you, he has that. Maybe Hillary has it.
So, all right, so in 2020, so what am I looking at when I'm looking at the 23 budget that has 56,264 for a social worker?
I would have to look into that. Because what we're budgeted, 2022, 2023 is 42,198 and 62 cents.
Yeah.
83 divided by 3. No, it doesn't make sense. 6,000 divided by 4.
Walter?
1466. So, the reason that it's shown that way is because on a budgetary basis, we would look at it as the social worker as a $56,000 a year position, right? Divide that by 4, it's 1466. So that's why there's the deduct. Now it makes sense, right? Because when they go at the end of the day, they're not going to ARPA to collect their pension and their health benefits and all that sort of stuff, right?
No.
Right, so that has to be reflected in the town. Okay, I get it. Thank you. The other question that I had was, you said you use a restorative environment. What does that mean?
So, pretend there's a circle table. It's called circling. That's the first step, is to get everyone around a circle table so we're all on the same page. It's not set up like a jury or a trial where, even like this, I'm up here presenting to you, and then you guys are all seating at the table. So right then and there, it provides an equal standing for everyone sitting. Then one of the next steps is general ice-breaking questions. So at that table, you may have, again, the youthful offender, family members, you may have an advocate they bring, and then you're going to see school counselors, so their guidance counselor. You're going to see our Waterbury Court probation officer. You're going to see our juvenile detective, Nick Smith, the intervention manager, Stacy Kabasakalian, as well as we have a member of the public that sits on it. And the whole point of that conversation is to look forward, not necessarily look at what that issue was, because if that arrest was coming out of, you name it, say it was a fight, but the kid's emotionally deregulated because they're going through a divorce, or they just lost a parent, or they have depression, anxiety, which is a better choice, and that's for substance use, working with the probation officer and or police for their recommendations. So the restorative nature is that we used to have the youth wait outside while this conversation was happening in real time. How are we going to learn if there's transportation issues? If we say, all right, you need to do 20 hours of community service for some kind of retribution, and they come in and say, we don't have a car. How restorative is that? So it's allowing the child and the family to come to the table and say, well, maybe we can get to a couple of youth agency events, and maybe we can get you some bus passes, or maybe the youth agency could pick you up after school with our bus to get you to a event so you can volunteer. Restorative is working with them, not at them or for them.
Right, and this is something that you do for like at-risk youth, right? That would that be the proper?
It would be for youth either first-time offense or going through the juvenile justice system. We just get general youth service bureau referrals that come from the schools, the public, where we can pull in this team, and that's just a general youth service bureau kind of referral. We look to help with truant students as well once those truant students go through the school protocols, so we will get those truancy referrals as well. But yeah, that level of intervention is utilized for those students that are maybe struggling and need it.
Wow. I mean, I didn't realize the scopes. That's why I was asking. It's kind of like, so your I always thought youth agency was more activity based, but really you're kind of like a holistic youth services agency.
Yes. So we so we're youth services,
like social services.
Exactly. So for that instance, we are the youth service bureau for the town of New Milford. Newtown has youth and family services. Danbury has Danbury Youth Services. It's what we are doing because we are still charged with that state statute to provide this kind of programming, to work with marginalized youth, whether it's also homeless youth, again, the youthful offenders, truant youth, as well as providing all these awesome leadership opportunities that we do, volunteer opportunities. So yes, we offer wide programming and a wide variety of youth, and each youth services is vastly different. We offer one of the biggest childcare programs here in the town of New Milford. That's because that's what the town has needed. So a lot of youth services reflect those town needs.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just want to follow up on the social worker again. Is this historically a 30-hour position, which you've increased to 40 because of the ARPA funds, or is it
Yes.
going forward, you want to keep it at a 40-hour position?
So it was increased from 30 hours primarily as a programmer to that 40 hours position so we could offer the therapeutic counseling. In our conversations with the mayor, we were looking to keep that position at the 40 hours. That conversation, of course, will come. ARPA isn't forever. So that those 40 hours would then have to be budgeted into the general fund when that ARPA money is gone.
Thank you, Jason. That was my question.
Is that ARPA for 2 years or one?
2 years.
It's for two, good. Great.
Jace, how many children do you cover in the course of a day or a year? Just give me a ballpark across the board.
Daily, so we have about 135 students in our child care program.
Okay.
So that's just at Sarah Noble, Hill and Plain, Northville, and Scotticoke Middle School. We have about 6 kids that come into work at our video program. Those are primarily high school students. Some are funded by the workforce board, so we're able to offer them jobs that are subsidized by the Northwest Regional Investment Work Board. A lot of acronyms. And then Maria Leo, our youth advocate. Today she had peer mentors, so we had about 2 or 3 pairs of mentors in there. Sarah was running counseling, so she had 3 sessions of counseling at the youth agency. And this is just on the day, so it all depends. There may be a parent workshop, a safe place, which Maria offers, and that's for special needs families or children and families with special needs and their friends. That's at the max. We have about 30, 40 individuals that go to that. Our groups are bi-weekly, another 8 to 12 students. It's on the day, Paul, really.
So in the course of a year, you're looking at well over 1,000 kids that you're handling.
Yes. I have that number in my annual report, so I can get that over to you. Once I get back to my office, I can send it to you.
I just wanted the public to understand what you're doing out there for that many kids.
Thanks.
It's great. You've done an awesome job.
And Jason, also, how many kids are in the Latchkey program?
Yeah, so that's the before and after school program. So that's where we have the 135 students.
A day.
A day. And with that, though, we hire of anywhere between 25 to 30 high school and college age students that work in those programs. So we are one of the largest employers of
There you
youth.
go.
And with that, we try and provide those first job learning skills. We're very patient with them, where other jobs wouldn't be. But it's the best interest of the youth services to be patient. And so when they go to get their big jobs, they know how to work, really.
I
Katie?
appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, Jason. I just want to say, after all the time I've known you, you personally have done so much for the programs. And I
you.
think we ought to consider, instead of being the youth agency, which is now you know everybody else's youth services, you have managed to keep up with every single trend, issue, problem, good things, bad things, and you definitely get kids ready for what's coming, whether it's the preschool kids or it's somebody going to go out and get a job. The video program, I mean, it's stellar. So I can say nothing but good things for you, and I think you use your funding very well. I think you make do in a lot of places that nobody's going to ask about tonight, but I know that you're doing the more than is you could really expect someone to do with the funding that you have, and you end up with it gives great promise to people like in the community that how you're helping kids. And having been involved in pre-restorative, program before that, it's definitely better the way you're doing it now. It was always, you did something wrong, now it's, let's all talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I give you a lot of credit. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you, and big thanks to the staff of the youth agency.
Of course.
A lot of them have been here.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Myself, in the agency, in a position 2015, but I started working there in 2005.
Right.
We have a lot of long-term staff, a lot of staff that grew up in this town like myself, which offers us a great skill set because we know the town, we've been in the schools, we know the culture, and so I couldn't do it without the staff. They're
Brian
absolutely
and Stacy
amazing.
are,
They're phenomenal.
yeah, right. But you're a great group.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? Any questions on the phone?
Nope, thank you, Jason.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
I just wanted to say you guys are doing a great job. I know my son and all his friends who are in the student advisory board, those monthly meetings, he looks so much forward to them and
Is that Chris?
is really getting a lot out of it.
It's Tom.
Thank you for doing all you do.
Thank you, Tom. That was you, right, Tom?
Yep, that was me.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you to all
Yeah, thank you.
the team at the youth agency. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel, I'd love to try and get it. If you want, I'll figure it out. Okay. I'll reach out. Yeah.
Okay. Next is the library. Lorna.
There we go.
And then you're right under me. Click elsewhere.
There we go.
Library.
Lorna, when you're ready, can you introduce your,
Pardon?
when you're ready, can you introduce the folks that are here?
I'm sorry, I
When
can't.
you're ready, can you introduce the folks that are here with you?
Yes, yes. So my name is Lorna Ryans. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm the library director, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, and the Board of Finance. And I have with me today Heather Hafer, Steve Neal, Amy Birkin, and these are all my staff members. Amy Birkin is my teen services librarian, and Heather Hafer works in reference services, and Steve works in the tech services area, and then Jack Oxton here, who is the president of the library board. So thank you all for being here tonight. So the library is open. That's my news, and I'm very glad that we opened last Saturday, and the timing is good, because I didn't want to have to come to this meeting and say that we weren't open. And I want to just start by once again thanking all of the wonderful people who have helped to make our building possible. the New Milford taxpayers, Mr. Mayor, all the work that you've put in, the town council, and the library board of trustees who have been working for years to make this project happen, the library building committee who've been coming to meetings for years, friends of the library who have supported us, former director Sally Tornow, who brought this to referendum, which was a very big thing. The facilities department has really come to the front for us in the last few weeks especially. Appreciate them. And of course, to my amazing staff who've really, they have stuck through a lot in the last couple of years. So just appreciate everybody who is put into this project. Thank you very much. So if you haven't been to see the new building, please stop by. Those of you who have already, thank you very much. Happy to give tours. And I just want to start by talking a little bit about, what has gone on in the last year, that despite the fact that our building was closed and that we had repeated moves around and within the building due to construction, the library has continued to serve the public. We had over 10,000 curbside visits, 54,000 plus items were circulated. We've been ordering and circulating new books, so we've kept our collection up to date, even though the building was closed. Running programs for all ages, both off-site and through Zoom. And we have reached out to the community this year. We have a monthly book exchange that takes place at the senior center and also at Glen Eyre and Butterbrook Apartments. My staff has gone out there and exchanged, checkbooks out to our senior citizens who can't get, in to do curbside services. And we also worked on connecting our teens with the senior citizens. So at all three of those places, we've been running programming, youth senior book discussions, board game programs. And so that has been really wonderful for both age groups. We also, this year, worked in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce, the Corporation for New Milford Economic Development, and Western Connecticut SCORE to create a series of business information sessions and networking. And that is something that's going to be ongoing monthly and will now be taking place in the library. So we've also been working on putting a lot more partnerships into place. And now that we have our building open, we'll be moving forward and working with social services, the literacy volunteers on the green, and others. So we have a lot of things in store, and we're very excited. So our newly remodeled library is finally open, and it took a little longer than expected. But public response indicates that people really feel that it has been worth the wait. People are just wowed. They are walking in the door and they are amazed. It is a beautiful space. In the first 2 days we were open, we had over 2,000 patron visits. We had 150 requests for new library cards, 272 cards renewed, 1,700 items circulated. So we are just booming. We are running, and it's great. Our new building offers reservable meeting rooms and study rooms, public computers with ample workspace, a brand new children's space, a brand new teen space, a beautiful and peaceful reading room. And we're very excited because as we look around, we're seeing that our New Milford patrons are really using those spaces in the way that we had hoped. And we're seeing, for instance, young adults and teens who are generally a hard group to get into the library. They're all over the place. They're studying together in groups in the reading room up on the second floor, and up on the mezzanine. So it's just wonderful to see. People have been reserving the meeting rooms. The study rooms were, all 3 study rooms were full almost all day today. People are attending story times and book discussions. The art exhibit, a lot of people have been just standing and looking at that. It's beautiful. It's all different New Milford artists have contributed. A lot of people getting computer assistance already, people just sitting in the children's room watching their children play, reading, using laptops in our window seats. So everything that everybody put into this project has been worth it. It's just a wonderful thing. So the budget for this year, starting with the materials and supplies, I redistributed my automation and others, so if you're looking at your last year numbers, if you add the automation and other together, it adds up to the same amount as those two. So the increase this year is basically due to database costs. Database costs go up every year, and there's not really anything that we can do about that. And the other thing that is notable is that we have decreased our revenue for this coming year, and that is because the library board voted this year to eliminate fines on books. And that is to improve free access to information. And this is a very big trend in libraries right now. It was something that was recommended by the American Library Association. There was a resolution put in place a couple of years ago. At this point, 123 out of 169 Connecticut libraries are now fine-free. So it was time for us to join in. What happened? Oh, sorry. Uh-oh. I need to go back. Sorry, I had pardon? There we go. So personnel. So you'll see that there are actually there's a decrease in full-time personnel this year. So what has happened is that the town is going to be helping us with our facilities. The town is really going to be running the building this year, and because we have this brand new beautiful building, and we want to make sure that we're keeping it in good shape. And so we shifted our money that we had for facilities into the Public Works Department, and we have also shifted some funding from the full-time budget line into IT. And the IT department is going to be helping us out in the library with our, keeping all of the technology current and helping us with troubleshooting and issues that we're having. So the total personnel budget for this year is $779,127, and that's a 5.5% decrease from last year. The total budget for the library, as requested, is $1,194,594, which is a 2.6% decrease. Does anybody have questions for me?
Any questions for Lauren? I do. Walter?
Yeah, if you could just explain the print, non-print, I'm assuming that's the purchasing of new books and e-books?
Yes.
And which is greater? And you see one e-books getting
Well,
bigger?
I mean, e-books, the last couple of years have been, because we're closed, e-books have been very strong. Audiobooks are huge, even bigger than e-books.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely growing, but we still have strong readership of
Yeah, I prefer the books myself.
Yeah.
The other question I have, can you explain what the automation is?
So automation is the IT to keep our operating system running. So we are part of a consortium called Bibliomation, and they run what we call our ILS, which is our catalog. It's not just a catalog, it's also connected to all the different library card holders, and it also connects us to all the different libraries in our consortium. So we could place a hold in that system, and we can place a hold within the system on a book that's in another library in the consortium, and it gets picked up easily. So that's a big chunk of that.
And the Hoopla app, is that part of that, or is it something totally different?
No, well, that would be considered one of our streaming services.
Okay.
Yeah. Questions?
Any other questions? Hillary?
This is Chris.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Hi. Yes?
Hi, sorry, actually just a comment. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate kind of combining the services on facilities and IT. I think that's just a great way to provide better service for the library while making more efficient use of taxpayers' funds. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Mine was just a question with the IT. Is that the position that we lost, was the IT? So IT was in-house prior to this year?
IT was happening in-house prior to this.
Okay, so, because I know with the audit, there was a situation where we lost the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is now, the town is going to be, so it's going to be back up through the town
Yes.
person?
Right.
Yeah.
The goal, Hillary, is, and Jason can attest too, one of the things we've been really focusing on is letting the departments run the business, and then the back office infrastructure, you leave it to really the professionals. So you have Dave Martin in facilities. So at the max now, if Jason needs something there, they go in, they take care of all of that. Same with Lorna, if she needs something, whether it's facilities or IT,
Right.
now it gets done centrally located within our departments.
Okay, so we'll see that in their
Yes.
budget, that makeup. And how many full-time and how many part-time?
So, well, the goal right now is 8 full-time and 15 part-time. We're down a few people, but we are working very hard to get everybody in place.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody
Any
else?
other questions from Lorna? Thank you, Lorna.
Okay.
I have a
thank
question.
you.
Is Diane Place calling in remotely?
Yes?
Okay, Diane.
Thank you. So, Lorna, love what you've done with the library. It's fantastic. Love everything about it. I do not understand. So, the library was closed down for a number of years. I understand why there are, employees that you wanted to keep on that you didn't want to lose. I do not understand, and I'm sorry, this is a tough question. I do not understand your contractual obligations, your automation, your print, non-print. You were not open. So could we not have negotiated with our vendors to give us a break?
So, we so Bibliomation is our consortium, and that is a big chunk of that. We could not shut down our catalog, because that is how people access our materials, and we were still circulating things. So when you have a library, you have to keep we couldn't shut down our collections, and we also have people using our remote sources, especially when we were closed to the public. So when people couldn't get into the library, they were using all of our streaming services, our downloadable ebooks and our audiobooks and our databases. All of that stuff was probably more important than ever that they would be able to access
Could I interrupt at this point?
Pardon?
May I interrupt at this point to ask you a
Sure.
question? Thank you. So, do you have data showing what the percentage is of people who are doing that as opposed to people who are doing that under a normal year without closing down?
I have statistics. I don't have that with me right now, but I'd be happy to get that information to you.
I would really like to know that.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But also their actuals for the prior year were less, right? I mean, they were only at 80%. So it's,
Any
Anybody
other
else?
questions for Lorna? Joe?
So you mentioned the loss of data or whatever with the audit. Remember, it was in the audit, and you just mentioned. Could you just explain to me what happened? I've been out of the loop on that a little bit, and I.
Data. Well, so I was assured that we were fully backed up in our, all of our staff drives. We also had a mirrored hard drive, and so the somebody was moving the mirrored hard drive, and it didn't get turned off, and they turned it off, but they didn't wait till it stopped, and they picked it up and they moved it and they dropped it, and so the discs were still spinning. So we lost both of those drives, and then we had a shared drive where we had the majority of our information, but we also had some separate drives. And so the person who had been backing it up didn't realize that those separate drives had not been backed up in the cloud. So that was what we lost. We lost the separate drives that were out in the cloud.
And what was on that?
Like administrative files and staff files.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lorna? Walter?
Lorna, I believe any jewel of any community is its library. You got a new jewel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
And,
It really does look amazing.
yeah.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I'd like to know who the other people were other than my wife that were picking up books, because she probably accounted for 7,000 of them. I mean, seriously, it's like 2-3 times a week.
And I'd like to thank the staff, obviously, putting in all that time to get the library prepared. Katie, I'd like to
Yeah.
thank you too for our weekly meetings
Yes.
that we had with the contractor and with the architect. And it's a beautiful, beautiful library. It was great to see all those residents there.
Yep. Looking forward to seeing all of you. Thank you very
Amen.
much.
Thank you, Lorna.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Lorna, I like my new hat, by the way.
Oh, good.
Next, building.
Really?
The pointer? Oh, that's all. Where am I? Oh, it's the second one up.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Anyway, my name's Bill Murphy. I'm the building official. I've been the building official since 2020, and I've been in the building department since 2004. I don't think this, let me see, the slides might not be in great order. And then I click on it each time for the next.
Forward, backward, laser pointer.
Okay. I just got a couple quick pages of stats. This is the last 6 months of 2022. You know, we had permits applied for over 1,000. We brought in over 420,000. Did over 1,600 inspections, and we issued 1,400 permits. Pretty good clip. There we go. So I did this just quick. This is like pandemic to now. when somebody applies for a building permit, they have to give us a construction value. Our department evaluates it to make sure that it's, you know, fair market value, and so we have to crank through these numbers. So I just threw this in. This was kind of the beginning of the pandemic till the end of 2022. So through our office, we looked at over $154 million of construction costs that we evaluated to make sure it was fair. And the other thing I wanted to point out is pre-pandemic, maybe one quarter a year, if we had a really solid, you know, might be in the summertime or something, had a really solid quarter, we might hit 10 million in construction costs. You can see what we've done almost every quarter, especially the fourth quarter 2022 is off the charts as far as construction value. So it's keeping us hopping. Just one quick thing before I do the budget. We've been at a steady pace. I want to thank you guys for restoring our full-time secretary in the last budget to full-time. That, you know, it was the building department, no matter what, if they want health, if they want zoning, if they want wetlands, they always call us. And we're just a busy office. And when we were flip-flopping with the secretary, I kept stealing her from the fire marshal, and he was stealing her back. And you know, I'm really grateful that you guys, you know, went with that. One of the things that's kind of bugged me, because times are good, the Milford's had a lot of fraud, and that's one of the things our office has never really had to get involved in. But we've had some shysters come into town during these busy times, and you know, it's kind of disheartening, some of the stories. I had Mayor Pete and Mr. Buckby put a call in for me to Consumer Protection. We had one lady, she got hit pretty bad, you know, and you know, it all goes through Consumer Protection, and you know, they throw your name in the pile of papers. So we keep, you know, being the squeaky wheel to try to get it up. So they're working on it, but that's, you know, we find them, we chase them. You know, we don't. You know, if people call us and we find something, we get right on them and say, out you go, you know. But that's part of the economy being better. I've had people call the office, and I just tell them, please don't hire somebody off of Facebook. You know, talk to somebody, make sure they know, you know, have worked somewhere or something, you know. So, okay, so the budget, our personnel line, 219. 340, $200 for overtime, and materials and supplies, 3,000. We cut 500 out of materials because I've been able to stagger by some code books and some other things. So Pete and I decided we normally do 35. We chopped 500 out of that, and my increase from the last year's budget is my salary. Thank you. You know, the others are union employees, so that's all pending. So the only increase in our budget this year is the increase that you've given me, which I really appreciate. And any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions, Barbara?
Can you elaborate on that fraud you were talking about? Are you talking about contractors?
Yeah, we had one lady who called a guy on Facebook to move some junk out of her basement, and he came in and he started talking, and he was very nice, and you know, talked a little about God, and you know, got the lady very comfortable. He started talking about the kitchen, and so the lady felt comfortable with him and started hiring him. And by the time we got called, he was out of there, and he had got her for like 40 grand, and it was one of the worst jobs I ever.
So she hired him to do renovations, or
she had hired him just to basically clean out her basement.
Okay.
She was an older woman, you know, living alone, and she talked to the gentleman about. He said, "Well, I do other things. I tile, I paint, I can do kitchens," and he gained her confidence. And the next thing you know, she decided to have her kitchen redone and one of her bathrooms redone. And this guy came in. I just have to say that everybody knows what a bathtub faucet looks like, and everybody knows what a shower faucet looks like. Well, the bathtub faucet's down here because you're laying in the bathtub. The shower faucet's up here. This guy took a bathtub out and put the shower pan in, and he left the faucet down 2 feet off the ground, so you'd have to back down. I felt awful for the lady, so we, you know, my assistant Sean has kind of gotten in with consumer protection, so a guy he can call. So we've been kind of squeaky wheeling with them. But you know, some of the contractors, because in Connecticut they just pay for a registration. They use this name, they pay their money, they get a registration. It gets taken away, they use that name. It's not as bad as it is and gets in like cities and stuff, but it's alarming. We've had a couple this year that we've had, you know, it's not something that we normally have to deal with. It's just something that's come across. But there's one guy in particular, I think consumer protection, you know, he's definitely gonna be in court. You know, he's gonna have civil fines and stuff, so. But besides that, you know, the economy is still good. The winter's been warm, so people are still working. There wasn't any frost, so the guys can still dig. You know, it was funny, there was a little gloom and doom in fall, and then it kind of went away and everybody's still working again. So February, March, and April is usually when people start coming in and, you know, talk about projects they want to get started for this year. So we're starting to get we had a couple pools come in already, plans for in-ground pools, that the pool companies say they're so busy, come in now, get all your stuff done with the town, so when the weather's warmer, they can get going. So I don't foresee anything falling off. The only thing Pete and I have talked about is in the past 3-4 years, a lot of single-family houses have been built on lots that were, I'll say, user ready. You know, a lot here, a lot there, and you know, maybe the prices of the land went down and they bought them up. You know, anybody that comes for New Milford in the future going down the road, there's going to have to be some neighborhoods, some infrastructure put in, which I'm sure the new guys coming in will do eventually. But right now, everything I've seen in the past couple of years has been on lots that were kind of left over. We got a guy building in Perry Drive. He bought 4 lots. Those lots were, God, they've been sitting there for 25 years or more. You know, they didn't even look like land. It was all rock. You know, and now they're building houses there. So.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
Joe.
All right, so in terms of the Department of Consumer Protection thing, I want to touch on this again, because I actually had an experience with a chimney when I was doing the renovations at my house through COVID, where the contractor came in, and he was kind of like half in business, not really, hired some other sub who didn't have a home improvement contractor's license.
Right.
They installed it wrong. I ended up in a whole dispute with them about chimney heights, and the installation was a whole disaster. It cost me thousands of dollars I didn't need to spend. But the Department of Consumer Protection couldn't do anything because they didn't have valid contractor's licenses.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, this guy had an active, and one thing that's nice about our OpenGov system, our online permitting that we do, is if anybody applies for a permit that's a contractor and say their name is John Smith and they don't fill out the contractor, we just click on add contractors, and we're tied into consumer licensing. Every license in Connecticut, OpenGov is tied into. So I could put John Smith Electric, you know, I tweak it and you usually find their license.
Yeah.
But the HIC guys, we make them put, if they don't put a valid license down, we reject their permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we seeing any permits, speaking of licenses, from major contractors in New Milford, like larger building, or no?
I don't know. I'm working on 47 Poplar Street, which is 32 units, one building. And I don't know who's gonna build you know, I got the plans in May, I rejected them. They sent me the same plans in November, I rejected them. I gave them punch lists both times and stuff. They keep calling me saying it's coming. But as far as who's doing it, I don't know. if a big contractor's gonna come in and do it, or who they're gonna use, but
Are there any other developments that size? Like 30 units, 100 units?
not that we've done. We did 30 units down at 69 Lanesville, 5 buildings, but that took a couple years. You know, that job really dragged. Talk about supply chain issues. Yeah, that poor guy waited 5 months for an Eversource transformer so they could turn the electricity on.
That's terrible.
He just sat there losing money. I felt sorry for the guy, but
what can you do?
There's nothing he could do about it.
Specialty parts, man.
Yeah.
Electric gear is tough right now.
Yes, yeah. But overall, things are good. I don't see, you know, Pete and I have talked about revenues, and we've kicked them up a little bit. And I think, you know, even if construction goes down, the Milford's grown a lot, or I think our bottom line in the building department is gonna be higher than it, you know. We used to figure it at about $350 for an average year for revenue. I think when we're all said and done and, you know, things calm back down, we're gonna be in the 4s with our steady revenue. Last year, we boomed it. This year, we're gonna boom it. And then we'll still next year be in the 4s, so. But again, thank you for
Pete,
the.
Doug Skelly.
Go ahead.
Hey, Pete, listen, Bill, I want to personally thank you and your staff for helping me out last year. You guys were awesome. I know that I added to that revenue myself with building a home, but I just wanted to thank you personally and Sean and everybody in your staff. Smooth transition. You guys were on site and helping me through the process, so I just wanted to reach out and say thank you personally.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions for Bill?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in here. I'm Diane Clay from Finance. I'm calling in.
Sure.
So I have to say, building department, I'm a big fan. So I've done a number of things with my house here in New Milford, and I'm buying a property and going to be building a house. And you guys are so good, because whenever I call and I say, so who would you recommend to do X, Y, or Z? You don't give me an answer. You give me a sheet of paper that has, you know, a number of firms or people who can do what I'm asking for. But I always know that those people have been vetted, and I can call any number of them, and they are probably the best people in the area to hire.
Yep.
So I go by what the building department tells me, or I call Joe DeGroyer.
Yes, good
Because
choice.
Joe is like, you know, the best, and
Yes.
Joe has done work at my house. So I just want to say that you guys are great, and I really appreciate what you do, and I have nothing else to say.
Thank you, we appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
Hillary? Okay. Anybody else on the phone that has any questions or comments? Anybody else? Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Next is Ivana, Social Services. Hi, Ivana.
Thank you, everyone, Town Council, Finance, and the Mayor. So I'm Ivana Butera. I represent the Social Services Department. And we are, well, we're a different kind of department, but in terms of the kind of work that we provide to the town. We're made up of, right now we're made up of 6 categories of workers. I include the volunteers as the 6th because of the amount of work that they put in. Basically makes up for at least 2 full-time workers. We have the director, the diverse community advocate social worker, and the crisis navigator social worker. All 3 of us are social workers, and the director is also licensed. Besides our office coordinator, we now have a program and volunteer coordinator. And that was something that was, that you guys graciously helped us reconfigure our positions this year to create that position separate. It's not created out of something new. It was basically a split from our social workers position in order to handle our programming, primarily the food bank, which makes up most of what that is. And it gave our full-time social worker the opportunity to become the crisis navigator, which allows that position to really dig in and be in ongoing support for some of our more critical cases with our at-risk communities. And so that's why it's configured a little bit differently than you might have seen in years past. Our mission remains to offer resources and programs to enhance the well-being and sustainability of our residents who are experiencing financial hardship. Some of those are short-term hardship, and some of those are a little bit longer to overcome. We address basic needs, including food, and household self-sufficiency. And in the next couple of slides, I'll get into some of the specifics. Our budget is about 98% salary, and then the rest of it is broke down there. This year, I've actually reduced a little bit in overtime and coverage because of the kind of work that we're doing and the opportunities that we've been given with the new positions. Social services is vital to any healthy community. We basically offer an economic and a social safety net, if you will, for any of our residents who are struggling, again, temporary or long-term. We strengthen their well-being, allow them to then be self-sufficient, move on, care for their households, care for their families, and increase their the way of life that they're looking to live. We do this through dedicated social workers. We offer needs assessment and connection. We do a lot of work with application assistance, crisis intervention, and advocacy, and then connection to tools to increase their skill so they can go out there and be basically get through what they need to on their own. We work a lot with family support. Some of our programs are enrichment programs. We run the Santa Fund. We run, with United Way, we run the Back to School program, and with our friends at the Youth Agency, we hold the Bike Day. We also assist the Youth Agency and assist Park and Rec in vetting families, if you will, for camp scholarships. So they allow us to work there with them so their income information can remain confidential, and we do the means testing for those scholarships, which we really do appreciate, not just because we want to help our families get those children into programs, but it allows us to also look at because we're able to communicate with those families, find out what the needs are, we're then able to sit there and share other things that they can engage in to better their financial well-being or their social well-being. Another big piece is the food bank. The food bank is our biggest program, ongoing program for year-round. We basically do this through, we basically are fighting in food insecurity with the weekly offerings of fresh, frozen, and shelf-stable food. We've expanded that over the years, which has been fantastic. We've also been able to flex our schedule in terms of trying to meet the needs of the people, in terms of special accommodations, to accommodate for work schedules, medical needs, or any sort of accessibility challenges that might occur. Again, that has opened up because of our new position of the program volunteer coordinator. So even though we still run the food bank 9 to 4, we really don't want to see somebody miss an opportunity. So we're doing the best we can to accommodate their schedules. Part of our food insecurity or fighting food insecurity programs is our SNAP at the Farmers Market. This is a very exciting program that I've seen grown over the years. And that has been able to provide, it's been a win-win situation where you're getting some of our most vulnerable folks that have the hardest time sometimes obtaining nutritional and fresh foods because prices tend to be higher for that. But they can then take their SNAP benefits, where some folks that have been around a long time might know it as food stamps, and they can take those, and we help them convert that into coins. Then they can then purchase from our farmers, and then we're able to then pay the farmers after the coins have been used, and so the farmers are able to see an increase in customers and folks that otherwise wouldn't have been able to attend and obtain that local fresh produce can. And basically, this is just a summation of really how we do things, beginning with the relationship with the person, connecting with them, talking with them, assessing the needs. Sometimes people come in with one thing, they have a narrow focus, but after assessed by the social worker and our support staff, then we send, there are the resources out there that we can help you, and they say, I have no idea. And I'm like, yeah, why don't we sit down and go a little bit further? And then we can then connect them to more than they thought they were leaving with. So this is the breakdown of how we support the community and in the economy. Basically, last fiscal year, we were able to help local residents put over $400,000 back into the local community. And the way we do that is through some of the breakdowns there in terms of some of the ones that do produce or connect them to income, whether it's supporting Santa Fund gifts for folks. We're able to, through the help of our generous community, we're able to help give them gift cards that are for local stores. The camperships are able to then, the kids that are involved in camps are able to get in there and participate in those programs. And again, Park and Rec, a youth agency or two, and there may be others that we can help with throughout the community. SNAP at the Farmers Market, this is one of our highest years. It was up an additional 7%. We had 67 customers this year, over 200 visits, 230 visits, and the farmer sales were 7,843. Every year we keep increasing that back and forth into the community. In addition, with the food bank, registration has been up. Currently, we're seeing about 26% more than we did at this time last year, and about a 12% increase this time last year. Let's see, we have about 500 families registered. They come and they go because, again, sometimes the hardship is short-term, sometimes it's long-term. And so right now we're currently looking at about 273 active families. Over the holidays, we were serving about 330 active families. So it does fluctuate. In addition to that, we were able to provide through our Santa Fund program, through our food bank program, and through the generous donations that we've received through the community, we're able to purchase over $15,000 worth of gift cards throughout the winter months to basically supplement the food that we're able to give, and again, assist those families who are struggling and trying to make ends meet. We have a lot of other programs that we do that do, again, provide income in the form of grants that we're able to, whether it's energy assistance, renter's assistance, utility assistance, local agents, vendors for home repairs, car repairs are huge, car repair bills, things like that. One of the things that we've noticed this year is we've been up about 20 to 30% in volume of our energy applications at this time, and that just and what I mean by that is that people are coming in faster, and we see let's see, I think we've seen about 30 additional families we've never seen before come in for energy assistance. And one of the statistics is we usually see about 43% homeowners. Right now we're at 49% to 51% for renters, versus for heating assistance. But if I was to look back at the numbers back in, say, December, those numbers would have been reversed. I think it was about 52% homeowners. And basically, I think most of them are fuel sourced. So the homeowners were rushing in, were getting that oil, especially when prices were high. So we saw a lot of our homeowners come in, and now that we're digging more into assisting with the electric heat, a lot of our renters are now coming in because they don't have to get that done as quickly as the oil and the propane folks. And you've heard this term before, and is Alice, and it's basically our workforce population, and they are about 75% of the families that we work with. So even though we do work with disabled, we work with seniors through the food bank, and we work with a lot of families with children. There are a lot of folks that are employed. Some are temporarily unemployed, but are looking to then re-engage into the workforce. And they're just families that are basically constrained, is what is really what's referred to it. If something in an emergency capacity comes up, like a huge increase in oil, 24 cents a watt for your electric bill, or a car repair, that they need to get back and forth to work. They just don't have the additional freedom to pull that. And if they're pulling it sometimes from their rent, they're pulling it from another utility bill, or they're pulling it from their food budget. And so, again, that is basically why social services remains vital to that, because we provide that safety net. We provide that access to resources and connection so we can keep our families going and then, get them back on their feet. Some of the other things I wanted to talk a little bit about is because we've done this past year has been a real configuration of the way we're doing work and the opportunities that we're given in order, like crisis navigation, which is basically allowing, giving the time to our social workers to provide a service management that is in depth. There's follow-up. There's ongoing support, and we're not just saying, listen, this is what we can do for you. Connected to the Center for maybe it's an intimate partner violence, or connect with TBICO and try to enhance your job skills. But for those folks that are faced with a lot of different challenges that can present that wall where it's like, I know I need to take that step, but I'm carrying so much, that step is really heavy. And so we're able to sit there and stand next to them and be able to do that. And so our crisis navigator, who's really only been in this transition since the summertime, she's already, she carries a caseload independently of 54 people ongoing. There's also almost 20 people that she shares with our at-risk officer, Officer Toro, and besides referrals to the senior center, there's a couple that, because of multi-generational households, she'll do that. So her caseload is actually larger. And these aren't contacts. These aren't one-time, I did something for you, I referred you out. This is what she's carrying. And the crisis navigation is really only about 50% of her job. She's still obligated to take appointments as they come in, whether they turn out to be somebody who just needs a one-day assistance for an energy application or a connection to resources that have the life skills and the opportunity and the support in their own homes to then go on and do this on their own. She's still obligated to do that. But she's still producing, it's probably about 62% of her job right now. And I have some further statistics in terms of the time that she's put in to it. In addition to that, our diverse community advocate is trilingual, so she's been a wonderful asset to assist us in communicating with our Spanish and our Portuguese population primarily. And the interesting thing with that is, not interesting, just very cool. Because when you sit there and you see these vulnerable populations that you have a hard time reaching, and they need you. and they're members of this community. Their kids are going to school, they're working here, and they have further challenges in order to navigate these systems, that if any of you have ever done applications online that were sent from a federal government agency or a state government agency, I have a master's degree and I still can't get through some of them myself sometimes. We're there to help them do it. And we have seen since she's been with us, and she's been with us almost 5 years, the amount of work that we've done with our diverse population has doubled. We used to work with about 18% to 21%, used to come in mostly for the food bank. They really wouldn't go do anything else. And the strength that she has given them to engage in services, to navigate things, she's able to stay on top of the information. Something even as simple as filling out the free school lunch applications, things like that. Unite CT, which was the renter, the assistance, the COVID assistance for renting. She did about 20, I think, on her own with them. Applying for jobs, because everything is now online. And again, when English is not your first language and you're trying to get through that. And, we're also working with folks, barring their cultural background, that have limited skill in computers. So again, navigating that is essential. So, I present a modest budget. I don't really show much change in that, but it's what we're able to give back to our community is what I wanted to focus on. And the last slide just shows of, again, who we work with. Pick a profession, pick a family demographic or family structure, and we have probably seen them. And so those are the folks that are in need, and that's why we basically exist.
Thank you, Ivana. Any questions?
So, Diane Clafe again here from calling in. Can I speak?
Sure, Diane.
Oh my God, Pete. So, I'm shocked. I'm truly shocked. The world that we are living in, your budget is flat. I think I have tears in my eyes. It's shocking that you were able to do what you do with not an increase. I'm sorry, it's incredible what you just said. And I don't even know what to say. Your budget is so flat. It's so amazing. You should be asking for more. Sorry, I'm on the Board of Finance. You should be asking for more. I'm just kind of shocked by it. So I have to give you incredible kudos and thanks for all that you do. But next year you need to come back in and ask for more. Sorry, Board of Finance, you need to ask for more.
Just click that.
I'm going to sign off.
She's my best friend now. Diane, you are now my best friend. Diane is my best friend now.
Joe?
I wasn't looking for a new best friend.
You got it anyways.
I swear, what you are doing is an unbelievable thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So.
But I would like to have a new best friend. That's great.
Uh-oh, did she hang up?
I don't know. I guess that's a mic drop right there, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd have to say, like tonight, Youth Agency and you guys, like what you guys do for the community is absolutely amazing. And I am astonished, to echo what Diane was just saying, that your budget it's not only flat, it actually goes down.
Yeah.
I mean, not $90, whatever, $90 is $90. That's good. It's good for the taxpayers, right? Now, about that, so now I've been sitting here while you were talking and listening, and I do get it. And honestly, the scariest thing to me is Alice, right? Asset limited, income constrained, yet still employed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've been there through parts of my life, and it is the most difficult place to be, because you sit in this very odd position between being able to 100% support yourself and oh my God, my tire's flat. It's really a terrible place, and my hair's been thinning because of it over the years, right? But to kind of get a handle on what happened with your budget, right? So I see the director position was increased by $4,000, right? Then we have the social worker volunteer coordinator. That position turned into program and volunteer coordinator?
Correct.
Okay, same person or different employee?
Different person.
Different
That was a
person.
brand
Okay,
new
great.
person.
It's fine.
Mhm.
I mean, you gotta put the right person in the job, right?
We did, absolutely.
And then it looks like you have a social worker crisis navigator.
Correct.
Which is funded by the ARPA, which, that's how it should look on the budget. Sorry. Right, where we're seeing the reduction. Now, that position is going to continue.
That
beyond-
position,
Right, we were planning on keeping this person after the ARPA funds run out, right?
we are.
I'm not
yeah,
saying, right,
yeah.
it's a
That's
needed
actually,
position.
that's actually a position that we had last year. She was identified as the social worker and program coordinator.
Yes, okay.
We then, did a little scientific dissection, broke that apart, and stepped her into the crisis navigator because we needed to fill the need. So yeah, she was there before, and we hope to see her continue after.
100%. I mean, a person who's, probably, front line, let's say,
She
right?
is.
A lot of trauma, a lot of experiences that, can be difficult. I understand. Okay, great. That makes a whole bunch of sense to me. Now I kind of get a feel for what's going on. And you know what? I agree with Diane. I mean, if you guys need more money, ask for it because it should be there. You're helping the people who need it the most.
Thank you.
I agree with Diane too. It just kind of made me very teary and angry listening to it because I feel like there's just been so many millions and I just can't believe, hearing just all the need and that, so I feel I've got to calm down. But I just wanted to ask, are all of the ARPA funds taken out of other budgets from departments? Because I don't understand why this is taken out of their budget for this
Would be the
position.
same as the youth agency.
And the fire department, like all of their capital stuff was taken directly in a
Well, no,
line
what it
item
was-
out of their
What it was
budgets?
is here you have an operation, right? So this is operating versus capital.
Right.
So in operations, what we did was we reconfigured the organization. So in talking with Ivana, one of the things that we wanted to address as we saw through COVID, and we talked about this at council and at Board of Finance, was we saw a tremendous increase in domestic violence, big time.
Right.
So I said to Ivana, what can we do to really attack that? So we started looking at the organization. And she was saying, well, one of the social workers who'd be a great fit for that, really spending over 50% of her time at the food bank. And I said, oh. And I said, well, the food bank also helps those in need, those that are underserved. What do you think we could do? And she says, well, what I think would be a great benefit is that we brought in a new person, a new employee, and their whole focus is going to be on programming and on the food bank. So that's how Wanda came on. Now, this person who had now new capabilities of 50% or more, now is going to be working with Officer Toro, who's going to be the front line when it comes to domestic violence, homelessness, and everything else. He is then going to refer that to our third-party vendors, whether they be CCR, whether they be Fortitude, you name it. And then what happens is then Ivana and her staff then look at the case management after the initial thing, and also working with those clientele that already are in need. And the beauty of it is you're right, Hillary, tons of money.
What I'm actually is going to...
Can I finish?
Well, sure, but I want to
Tons
finish
of money,
first.
as Ivana will tell you, the state has tons of money available right now. It's going to dry up with ARPA. We also here, as a town council and board of finance, gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Hope Fund and to, what was the other one?
Good Samaritan.
The Good Samaritan Fund.
250.
And we had...
250,000.
And we have great news too.
Joint.
We had our volunteers that they give time and money to our community fuel bank. It's the most robust it's ever been. So looking at that, the system seems to work. But again, with the economy looking to turn a little bit, this is something we're going to continue to monitor and to see what happens. But I think we're in a very good position to really serve our public as it is. Am I correct about it?
No, you're absolutely correct. And in addition to the original thought process was, the intimate partner violence or family violence or we're now looking at housing crises. And if we can, if Lauren can start working with somebody before they're evicted or before they're entering homelessness, connecting the services, if we can, what the lifeline is, we're better off if we can. And that, I'm afraid, is going to be probably the next group, is just the housing
Connecticut
stock.
has a program, My CT, right?
I'm sorry?
My Home CT.
My Home
So
CT,
that
can I make a
help with
plug
people.
for that? Anybody in this town listening, please. My Home CT is an amazing program. It has just opened up. They have money they're looking to give to help homeowners that were affected by COVID. The AMI is, the income is beyond what we would typically work with. So if you're not even and that's why I feel like I can't get the word out enough, because they're some of them are our people, but it's more than that. As you said, Alice is growing. We're no longer working with folks under just 60%. We're working with people at 75%, and sometimes we're seeing people just above that. But the constraint is so terrible that we've got to fit them into something. But anybody who has been affected by COVID, who's behind on their taxes, is behind on their HOAs, if they're on their lots for their mobile homes. Even if they are current with their mortgage, but they see their savings slipping, it can go forward. Even if you're near foreclosure, they're looking to talk to you. That's
Yeah, just to finish finish the thought is, they don't have a capital expenditures, and so I think that we need to sort of figure out a way of making a so I think that this is something that we have to revisit in our at the end of the road here and when we were negotiating. But to me, that the millions of dollars that went to other departments and the very little that went here, I think they got $200,000 total to social services for those two programs, right? Versus the $1 million to the fire department, or it was $1.2 million in total ARPA. So to take it out of the budget again, to me seems, anyway, I'll stop, but I think I've got to come back and revisit
I don't think
this.
it's coming out of their budget.
No, it was allocated towards it. I'm just saying, how do you put some of the, capital funds to social services so that they can do more with more money? Because they clearly are doing so much with little, and their budget is flat. Every other budget has been up at least 3%.
So Hillary, when you're talking about capital, just so I understand.
Yeah.
What do you mean in capital?
New car, this report, this stuff, the capital, let's go back to the,
So great news with capital. Ivana, can you tell Ms. Ram about the new truck that you have for social
Well,
services?
yeah, we have a new van. We are, it's not an old panel van, so we feel very much like big kids now in the town. Thank you. This van is tremendously helpful because we do 5 days a week. We pick up from various grocery stores. The three major ones, we pick up thousands of pounds of food, rescue food, or we purchase food with the generous donations for the food bank. And when I say thousands, I mean thousands. So to have a really great truck with a great suspension, we're very grateful with that. Also, with the ARPA funding, we also did receive the double-doored refrigerator and freezer. I'm gonna kind of be a nerd here because I've been doing the food bank for 15 years, and I've started off with pre-made bags and a freezer that could barely fit anything 15 years ago. To sit here and have the food bank not only offer an array of vegetables because of our wonderful gardeners, but to offer the capacity to not turn down frozen meat and dairy and milk, because now we have the space for it. Well, again, I'm showing my nerdiness side.
Suffice to say, thank you for everything that you do, and I would like to get you more money out of this budget, but thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Hillary.
Sal?
Yvonne, thanks so much for all the work you do. On the subject of energy, whatever the help that you guys are providing, you said that's increasing, right?
So, right now, we're, we've already done over 200 applications and counting, so, and when I mentioned that that's increasing, I don't know if it's going to flatten out by the time and mimic last year's. We always hover around 300, but the increase was the pace. Back in October, November, we were overwhelmed by the amount of people who came out, new people, recurring people, folks we haven't seen in years, but came out. So it was the pace that brought us up to that 20% volume. Because they needed, prices skyrocketed and they needed to fit it because they didn't have the budgets.
So it's true. So my question on that regard, because it's a man-made disaster that's being created by the state and the U.S. government, do you go back to Hartford and tell them that you have X plus whatever amount of people more than the last year, so that you tell them, and you can work with the other agencies obviously, because they're probably facing the same thing. This thing is getting worse, not better. We're all going to be on this assistance if it goes that way.
Right.
Now, since we're all voters and everything, do you associate with other agencies and basically report it to Hartford and tell them what you guys are doing is crazy? I get more people applying to pay for electricity because they don't have the money, even though the unemployment is supposed to be 3.4%.
Yeah, the state is very well aware. We have what's called a LIHEAP board, which is the energy board, made up of a variety of different folks in the business, if you will, and representing different sectors of the community. And there are, we do belong to a Association of Social Services, and we do have representation, social workers that are out in the Hartford area, a little bit closer to there. Well, they're on the board and they speak for us. And so, yes, I can't personally go to Hartford and say, and be honest with you, that state money that we get is kind of predetermined from the federal government. So it's not necessarily something we could advocate more of in that regard. I've seen the state this year respond well with the energy costs. For anybody who's coded hardship, they're able to get a $25 credit off their bill from January to June to attempt to offset that. So the state kind of is, I think, trying to respond in ways that they can, but the money filters from the federal government, so it's kind of there. I've seen it increase and I've seen it decrease over the years, and they just have to. They'll make those decisions as they see how many people are applying. So what happened is, what it is that we have different tiers of resources. So we've got the federal money. We always try to get as many people, get in there, get this program, get this one first. It's a finite amount of money, and it's theirs, it's yours, from the federal government, just apply for it. Then we look to our nonprofit partners, and Operation Fuel is one of the biggest partners in the state. It is the partner in the state. That extra $1 that they ask on your Eversource bill, do you want to contribute? That dollar goes to Operation Fuel. So then we have those folks. And then we're like, okay, who can we fit into that? And how can we then supplement? I consider, I tell this to Pete all the time, I said, we're scrappers. We try to keep going. What can we do? What can we do? And then, of course, we have the Community Fuel Bank, so that we have our local response. So we tap into our federal response, we tap into our regional responses, and then we tap into our local response. To try to help people,
So
because
you
there's
get
some
some
things we
help
can't
from
change.
them, from the state and the U.S. government.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. government and the state, they do recognize it. There are advocates out there. Yes, we do have voices, but I personally can't. But I am represented, and our department is represented, and the customers and consumers we are advocates for them as a whole, and we do
You
try.
think it's enough help that you get from them? $25 offset, I think it's a joke, to be honest with you.
It's $25 offset for hardship, but there's additional programs out there if you meet the income criteria, like for Eversource. And there's other companies, UI, CSA, or CSG or something, but Eversource is our main one for. So if you're a heating customer, if you heat with electric, if you're a heat with electric customer, and your bill's going to skyrocket, this year, yeah, you'll get like a $25 discount as long as you're coded. But you also have an opportunity to go on what they call an arrearage program, and it's a special kind of budget program where it allows us to work on worksheets and plead through the math, through the figures, through income versus debt ratio versus income ratio. We're able to then advocate for our clients to say this and this family really can't do $300 a month, but they can do $100 a month. And then Eversource, if they accept them, will then match what they're paying. So if Eversource is asking for $300, we get them down to $150 on their bill. They're still getting that $300 reduction because Eversource will supplant that. But out of pocket, that family gets to then put the rest of the money towards something else. They need.
I would appreciate it if every now and then when you come and speak to us here at the town council, just let us know, if it's, I expect this to be increasing as a problem, not decreasing, the energy thing. It would be just nice to know so we can actually help you out with that.
Well, to be honest with you, you have all been helping us, and I will continue, and I will take you up on your invitation. But the fact of the reconfiguration, our department got hit a lot during COVID, manpower wise. We got hit. In the last couple of years, we've been rebuilding. We've gotten a wonderful social worker in, being able to pull my social workers away from programming, and give them the opportunity to work with the folks when we're seeing more people, and they don't just need that 45 minutes of one application. We're looking to connect them to more. But absolutely, I will keep the invitation open. But your support we're already seeing it, and we do appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions for Lorna? Joe?
Just real quick, I've had a couple of texts come through where people are asking if you could just again, you said there was a website, other than going directly to your office, if you want to give your phone number or whatever for people who are listening and watching at home, whatever, and any websites, resources that you might be able to offer just real quick so that people can get an idea?
So I would definitely recommend them to go to our website, go to our Facebook page.
Can they message you on the Facebook page? Or no?
I post all the time.
Some people may not want to comment,
No, I don't mean that. They don't have to comment, but I have a private messaging on Facebook, absolutely. Okay. We also have email that's confidential. But My Home CT is a website that if you're a homeowner and you've been impacted at any point during COVID since January 2020, then check it out. And you can get that from my website. You can get that link also through Facebook. If you've received a summons for eviction and you're on the verge of going to court, Unite CT is opened up for families like that. Call them. The number again is in our office. It's on our website or it's on our Facebook page. Call them. They want to talk to you. See if they can't do something to save it. Energy assistance is done through our office. They just, they call, we'll give them a packet. We work around their work schedule. So, if it's a matter of emailing everything or a quick visit, we don't hold your feet to the fire to sit there and talk to us, even though we'd love to. But we communicate through email very well too. So, we try to respect people's time. What else? We've got 211. We've got United Way. Can we put
211 CT? The website's 211ct.org.
Yeah.
You put in a zip code where you live, or as far as you're willing to search out, if you're looking, whatever you're looking for, and it covers the state, which is I think for some people, depending on what they need, but it's easier than sitting on the phone and calling lots of different places.
If you're looking for food assistance and Thursdays 9 to 4 doesn't work for you, please call us or email us. Again, your phone calls and your email are confidential, but we will do the best we can to make those arrangements and get you that food.
I just want to say something to everybody who's still awake and listening to this and people here. I know that many people are, the pride go before the fall thing, but a lot of people think, oh, I can't go to social services, I can't use SNAP benefits, whatever. So, you know, the real tragedy is if you don't reach out to ask for this, and I know that a lot of people have in their mind what it used to look like, and maybe they have depression era times. It's not like that. This is an office, like any office in the town hall or social services is like going to the youth agency office. They're really nice people. They have a lot of volunteers. A shout out to all the volunteers that work in the food bank and everywhere else there. But, you know, just walk in and say hi, and they don't grab you and chain you to a chair. I think that a lot of people have a misconception about this, but it's really, if you need something, I get calls all the time from people, and the first thing I'll say is, have you called your local, and they're not from New Milford, and I'll say, well, have you called your local social service office? Oh, no. So I look it up as I'm talking, and I give it to them. And I think this, you know, I wish there was another name, you know, just welcoming services or something, but really and truly, there's no harm, no foul in doing that, and you guys help a tremendous number of people. And, you know, but you gotta just put yourself out there a little bit, right? I mean, and you can do it from the privacy of your home, on your phone, and calling your office is not at all, it's a pleasure to talk to people. Monica's always friendly.
Yeah.
Hillary?
It's just, I want to understand this because it's in a couple areas with the positions that ARPA approved. So I'm just trying to walk through the steps. So for example, we did an EMS operations manager.
Correct.
For $180,000.
For 2 years.
For 2 years. So is that in the ambulance? So is that in the budget taken out of
No.
their budget?
No.
So why not? So why is
I
that,
didn't,
why is that one taken?
so Hillary, I didn't make the department budget. I didn't make the book.
Okay.
That's something you're gonna talk to Greg Ossipow about, and he can help you with that.
Okay, so we might be able to put this money back into social services because it's not taken out of other, potentially that's a conversation that can be had.
No, we're using the ARPA money for the position.
But it's not taken out of the ambulance budget.
I think the problem, Hillary,
And
and
the
I
problem
noticed
is-
this too,
is-
is that and this is something that we're gonna have to talk to Greg
Yeah.
about, because I think the problem is that some departments have a revenue line item in their budget, and some of them have a separate revenue category.
Correct.
So the
Right.
funding is placed in different places, and I think having a little bit more uniformity would make right, consistency, would make the budget much more digestible as you're trying to
Right.
sort
They
out
are-
where everything is.
They are
Look at the
Because-
budget for ambulance, you know, there's nothing showing that we gave them.
Right,
So I think,
it's there somewhere, we just gotta figure out.
or put it back in to, yeah, okay.
You can have a meeting with Greg.
Absolutely. Was it Chris?
If I may,
Oh, is it Greg? Greg,
And who is speaking?
Greg.
Okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
yes, the ARPA funding is in a totally separate fund, and the funds are not commingled with the
operations.
general fund.
Right.
So then why do we have a line reflecting a reduction in social services for ARPA-funded workers?
And not in ambulance.
And it's not reflected in other areas?
Isn't that probably, I'm not certain of your question. I mean,
Page
any
176.
ARPA-funded, position is coming out of a separate fund, regardless of how it's portrayed in the general fund budget.
Hey, Greg, are you sitting in front of the budget right now by any chance?
But, you know, let me fix my phone here. I'm not getting,
There's a delay.
what other?
Yeah, we're gonna have Greg come in and talk
Yeah,
about it.
we
right, hey,
have
So we'll
time.
line up the questions, I think that's
Right,
There's
yes.
ARPA.
Hey, Greg, I think what we'll do is can you come by with at another meeting and we'll discuss it? Maybe as a separate
We have-
agenda item?
Right, we have a day extra if we need it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
That'll work.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Any other questions for Ivana?
I would like to say something to Alana.
Okay, Chris?
Chris?
Yep.
Yes, Chris?
Ivana, again, thank you for everything you and your team do. You guys do an amazing job, as a lot of people have mentioned here. I guess I would make one request, both to you and the mayor. I don't know if sometime, maybe over the summer, when the Crisis Navigator program is about a year old, or I think it'll be in the summer sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like maybe social services and the PD coming into a council meeting, get on the agenda, and kind of do a deep dive into what you've been doing, the results, and that sort of thing. Because I think it is a very important program and could be an extraordinarily powerful collaboration. And I think, at least I personally, need to see a deeper dive and to learn more about what you all are doing.
Absolutely, I can do that. I thank you. I will definitely be back for that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Ivana? Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next is Candlewood Lake Authority.
Thank you, Ivana.
And Candlewood Lake Authority, for those that are new onto the boards, is the budget we really cannot adjust, as we have delegates as well as all the other 5 towns. Our delegates represented us. They vote on the budget, and per our charter and the operating rules of Candlewood Lake Authority, that now is our portion of their overall budget. So this is more informational than anything else.
We have a lot of people here this year.
That's right. Where's my start? There we go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I'm going to introduce a few people. My name is Mark Howarth. I'm the executive director. With me, Mary Ann Gaffey is our chair. She's our delegate from Brookfield. We have Steve Kluge, who is one of our New Milford delegates, also our Watershed Committee chair. Joe Wodarski, one of our other New Milford delegates and co-chair of Public Safety Committee, and Will Meikle, who is a delegate from Brookfield. You serve on 3 committees, I believe: Finance, Public Safety, and HR. So, okay, well, thank you again. I'm just going to briefly say a little bit about what the Candlewood Lake Authority does for anybody who's listening who may not know. We are an agency of the 5 towns that surround the lake. We are now in our 51st year, so we celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, 1972. So we've been around a little while. We are a dual-purpose agency, essentially. We have our Marine Patrol, which serves on the water, enforces boating law, responds to critical incidents, educates boaters on how, boating safety, boating courtesy, things along those lines. We also are an environmental organization as well, and we work to protect the environmental values and assets of Candlewood Lake, the water quality. And so that's basically our agency. We also have an operations department which helps to maintain our vessels. Also puts out over 80 hazard speed navigation buoys out on the lake every spring and pulls them back out in the fall. And we also do a lot of education through public awareness. So that's a little bit about the Lake Authority. Okay, so every year it seems to be different. Last year there were some changes to the lake. These are some of the reasons we do what we do. One of the big changes that we saw last year on the lake was near elimination of vegetation in the lake. So to some people that was, they may not have thought it was such a bad thing because it wasn't getting tangled up, the vegetation wasn't getting tangled up in their boat props, and when they went swimming it didn't touch their feet. But as a Lake Authority, we strive for balance in the environment. So that was a concern last year, and so one of the things that we're doing this coming year is continuing to look into what happened to the vegetation in the lake. So we're going to be running a number of experiments, exclosures out on the lake, which is basically would keep things like the grass carp out to see if that has an impact as well. We are installing a new side scan sonar unit on one of our boats, our environmental boat. That was donated through a donation. We were able to purchase a side scan sonar unit. That's going to allow us to see down onto the bottom of the lake and look for vegetation. So we'll be out early in the year studying that. We're working closely with the state of Connecticut, with the DEEP, to look further into that. We just held a webinar at the end of January, I believe it was, where our director of ecology explained what we understand to be the causes of that decline last year, and and he also went in, of course, what we're going to be doing going forward. We will continue again our Lake Steward program. That is the boat inspectors that are out on the water, out at the boat launches. They are inspecting boats voluntarily inspecting boats and trailers that are coming into the lake to look for any invasive species that they may be carrying with them. That is a grant that is funded in large part by a grant from the DEP. So we will be continuing that program. It's going into its third year now. We are also going to be studying the zebra mussel population. That is one of those invasive species that was first detected in the lake back in the summer of 2020. So we are studying the population changes of the zebra mussels. We've been out, and so have some volunteers, been out searching the shoreline while the lake is drawn down now, because that's an opportunity to see where what the population is doing out there. Thankfully, we do have that drawdown, so the ones that are exposed have been killed, so that is a good thing. And then we are also going to be continuing the development of our lake management plan, and that is something that we have representatives from all the different towns involved in. And that is our long-term plan for protecting the lake's environmental values. It's sort of that roadmap and that blueprint. So that's a project we're working on as well. On the public safety side, our Marine Patrol is going to be out there, and they've been very busy, especially the last few years, but it's been increasing for a long time now. But since COVID came, they've been very busy out there. So they are going to be continuing to adjust their shifts as well. We've put more shifts later into the night. We've been out there when maybe people aren't necessarily expecting us to be out there. So we're just modifying our time out there, less shifts maybe when it's not quite as busy, and really migrating those shifts over to the busiest times at the lake, which can get very, very busy, obviously. We do expect to maintain the same number of hours, at least on the lake, as we did last year. We were up about 12% last year as far as the number of hours that we put on the water for our patrol last year. And as far as on the outreach side, we're going to continue to do things like that webinar we just had about the vegetation. We did a few of them in the previous years. I know Steve was on one of those with Neil, but they're very well received. We had actually a great audience on that webinar at the end of January. I was lucky enough to be the moderator, and the number of questions that came in with people, I mean, we couldn't even keep up. So the audience was engaged, and we found it's a really good way to reach a lot of people. And people can go to our website and click on our YouTube page and also see that as well. So that's available for people to see later on as well. So we put those up there. I'm going to hand it off now to Will. He's going to talk a little bit about the budget side.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We know the pressures that the municipalities are under in terms of their budget, so we tried to do a very responsible budget submission this year, and what you'll see on aggregate is we have a less than a 1% increase year over year, or less than $900 that we asked from you compared to what we asked last year. Each one of our respective organizations or committees underneath is plus or minus 1%, each one of them. So it's pretty balanced across the organization, and we feel pretty good about that, and we think we can continue to provide the level of support and services that Mark just described with this budget. The other thing that we did is we revisited our 10-year capital plan so that we have clarity and vision on the capital needs over time. And aside from moving a few assets in and out, it's fundamentally unchanged, and we expect the capital requests as part of our budget to be going down over time as we move out throughout the next several years. I know it's been a long night. I can go deeper onto this if you'd like to, or I could take questions.
Any questions? Joe?
I'm trying to log in. I'm really not sure if I can. Hello?
Hello?
We can still hear you, Diane.
We can hear
Oh, okay, good, excellent. So thank you, Barbara. So I live on a lake up near, the top near Lynn Deming.
Yep.
And we have noticed a significant difference in the milfoil in a good way. The milfoil is not a problem. Everything is really good. Right? Yes?
There's
Put
been
some sort of carp or something in the lake?
Yeah, this past summer, almost all the vegetation, it started off early in the year, seemed fairly normal as far as the vegetation in the lake. And then as the year progressed, the vegetation largely disappeared, which is not ideal. We're striving for balance. So, yeah. So we are working to get that balance back. But if you have a question about it, I can go into more detail.
I don't really have a question. So we were actually quite happy about the lack of milfoil this year because our butt was getting kind of caught into it, and it didn't happen this year, which was good.
Yeah,
we
go ahead. I'm sorry.
We did notice as we were traveling south on our boat through Candlewood Lake that there were a bunch of rocks that we had never seen before. I think the lake kind of, the height of the lake was challenged. We had a dry year. You guys draw it down, whatever. And so we kind of hit a couple of rocks here and there. And so that was kind of a problem. But we understood, the lake was lower than usual, and a lot of people were able to kind of fix their lakefront properties and build up their what am I trying to say? Can't even think what I'm trying to say. The lakefront, sort of like rock areas to.
There's seawalls?
What?
The seawalls?
Thank you, seawalls. Yes, thank you very much. And so it was not a problem for them, and it was not a problem for us, but we noticed a big difference in the lake this year.
Yeah, it does vary, the height of the lake. So, First Light, obviously it's a hydroelectric lake. And there is a 2.5-foot band of operating width that they have to operate in the summer. So in the springtime, oftentimes you'll see it close to full pond, as First Light will refer to it. But in a dry year, things like that, it can be drawn down. So there is a 2.5-foot difference that can happen anytime throughout that summer season. So certainly, things that the hazards and things of that nature can present themselves differently when there's a lot less water in the lake, for sure.
Thank you for the explanation. It was really kind of dramatic. I could see from where I am on Candlewood Lake, kind of, north over to the area beyond to the lake to the east of me. There was a huge difference in what I've ever seen before in the lake wall, or whatever you would call it, and the rocks that were there. I've never seen so many rocks ever.
Right. Yeah. And just briefly back onto the vegetation, we strive for that balance. So we don't want it to get caught in boat props, and we don't want it to interfere with recreation, but we want it still down low enough where it provides the habitat necessary for the fish population and everything like that. So we strive for that balance, and it's sometimes it's fairly tricky, and sometimes it's a little bit more art than science, even though we do a lot of science. We will be looking at that this year and look forward to hopefully reporting back positively to you next year.
Okay, Joe?
I understand completely. So I've only lived here for 10 years, but this year was really kind of extraordinary.
Joe, then Walter, then Katie. Joe?
Okay.
And then
Awesome. So what we're looking at in the budget is just a portion of the overall budget for the Kennewood Lake Authority, right?
Correct.
And there are how many towns that contribute? 5? All right, so that's Sherman, New Fairfield, New Milford, Brookfield, and Danbury. Okay, and everybody pays the same proportion?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, awesome. And how do you manage the way that each town independently would like to maybe manage the lake? Like I know a couple of years ago, wasn't New Fairfield wanted to use an herbicide or something to that effect, and then like a few years before that, there was something Danbury wanted to do, but no one else, right? Wasn't there like some conflict or something like that?
It's not always easy, but that's part of what we do. I mean, we work with all 5 towns. We work with the state. We work with First Light. So we're sort of that central, cog of that wheel, and so we work with everybody. And one of the things that we're trying to do and work towards is getting everybody to, pull in the same direction. And that really will benefit the lake, and it'll provide the changes that we need. So if all 5 towns in the state, and First Light and us, and we're all working towards the same goals, that happens. There's always going to be differences, and people are going to want different things, and towns may want different things, and we understand that. And we work through those those challenges and do our best.
As we've been having these budget discussions with towns, we met with the mayor a couple months ago, and we've several times gotten asked the question, how can we help? And we say, get all 5 towns together in one meeting so we can all talk about a common harmony approach to the lake.
That's it, yeah, right? You got to live with each other, right?
Yeah, it's been great. Teams are working well together.
Awesome. Now, in terms of the, like you're saying, like the milfoil mitigation and stuff, right? So, is anyone using insecticides, or is it just the triploid carp program that's currently being used, or?
So the milfoil is managed in 2 ways. The drawdown, which happens, the deep drawdown has been every other year, but the drawdown will help control it, and then the triploid grass carp are the other side to that, which is the other. Those are the 2 lake-wide management options. There is any insecticide or herbicide application on the lake requires a state permit, so that would have to go through the state. There is nothing that is being done currently. There are no applications of that nature being done currently, so that is not part of the management programs that are used. And then individual homeowners or town beaches, they have other options to do smaller, say a swim area. There are suction harvesting or hand pulling, things like that, to manage smaller areas. So there's a lot of options, benthic barriers. There's a lot of options to manage the vegetation and get that balance between the recreational needs of the lake and the environment as well.
And what's the status of like the what was it like? Wasn't there like a toxic algae or something like that?
Blue-green algae, yeah. It's we've thankfully we've been fairly fortunate as far as, especially during the summertime, we have not had any recent large-scale algae blooms. Blue-green algae is always in the lake. It's been around for over 3 billion years. It's why we have oxygen in our environment. So it's been here and it's not going anywhere. What we want is we don't want it to surface and bloom during the summers. So we have a program that the towns contribute to through WestCon. They test all of the beaches during the summer once a week to look. We have not had any tests that came back over the state threshold. They've been very low, especially last year. We had good results as well. But that can change, and we saw some blooms that came late in the year, in the fall and early winter, which fortunately don't impact things like swimming and that nature. But they can happen. So we monitor that closely. We have, actually, Steve is out there a lot. We have one of our probes. We monitor where the blue-green algae is in the water column. So sometimes it's way down low, which is where we want it, as opposed to up top where the people are. So Steve spends a lot of time out there with our director of ecology, monitoring where the algae is.
And all of that testing is funded under this, or are there other
The testing, I believe the health departments of the 5 towns now, each of the 5 towns contribute to that testing, that weekly testing, through their health departments. It used to be funded through the Lake Authority and then the health
Through our
departments.
district.
Through the district? Okay.
Yeah, took that over, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Walter, just want to follow up on the vegetation. I know a few years ago, we introduced a carp to do the milfoil, and there's been a significant reduction in the milfoil. It's not completely gone, but the carp's still there. Are they starting to feed on the native vegetation, and that's what the problem is with trying to keep the ecology there?
Yeah, so the carp are not too selective as far as what they eat. So we just happen to be dominated by milfoil. Previously, about 80% of the vegetation in the lake was milfoil, so that's primarily what was for dinner for them. But they'll eat whatever's around, and so they fed on the milfoil and the native vegetation. So there was virtually no vegetation, whether it was invasive or native, last summer. It was still growing, but it was getting eaten as fast as it could grow. And you know, our thinking initially, at least at this point, is that it was just a confluence of the right factors that came together, both the drawdown, the carp, and then environmental factors, where the carp got a little bit ahead of the growth rate of the milfoil and ate it down faster than, and other vegetation ate it down faster than it could grow. So 1 year does not make a trend. We're going to start monitoring early this year, working with the state. We'll see what this summer looks like, and then we will work on a plan going forward with the state.
Okay, so
So I want to
potentially,
tell you guys something that's going to blow your mind.
Diane, hold on a
Diane
minute,
again.
please. I have the floor.
Diane again from,
Hang on, Diane. Walter has
on-site.
Walter has the
What?
floor.
Walter has the floor.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so in a longer term thing, there's really no way of mitigating the carp that's already there, because they're hard to catch, if not impossible to catch. So over the longer term, we're just waiting for them to die off naturally, or how long-lived are the carp? We don't know?
Yeah, you know, the thinking originally was that they lived around 10 to 15 years, but it seems that in the Northeast, in a colder climate, they might live a little bit longer, so it could be 15 to maybe 20 years. And there is some natural die-off all the time, and so their numbers will be declining. And the state is looking at possible ways to, if need be, based on what we see this summer, try to remove some of the carp.
Okay.
So that's something that the state is looking
That's
into.
all. Thank you.
Walter. Katie?
That was my question. I do remember when the rather loud discussion about bringing the carp in the first place. And of course, some people thought this might happen. Is there, you just said the state could take them out, but I was thinking, is there a predator to the carp that wouldn't be worse than what we have? You know, the bigger fish. Because, I mean, you were part of this, you were still part of CLA, I think, when this all started with the carp, and I wished I could have made that. You said it's on YouTube, your January?
Yes, it's on our
Yeah,
YouTube.
I wanted to listen to that. So I think many of us are looking forward to hearing how they're gonna get them out.
I gotta tell you, you guys threw muskies in there. I would not complain.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be pretty big to take I mean, the carp are, you know, they're.
Yeah. Is there a vegetative item that you could introduce into the lake that would grow fast enough to keep, I mean, because the health of the water requires a nice balance, we know that. And if you can't get rid of enough fish fast enough, if you could put some vegetation in that would help.
Yeah, and the one thing I just want to mention as well, that, you know, we do twice a month water quality monitoring as well on the lake. And throughout last summer, there was no, you know, scientifically, you know, noticeable change in any of the water quality markers. So, you know, thankfully the water quality stayed relatively consistent last year despite the vegetation change. I think, you know, going into this year, we want to see what it looks like. You know, it was just 1 year. We went from, you know, the previous year having 400 acres of milfoil essentially to it disappearing, and so we believe it was that combination of factors all coming together. So we're interested really to see what this spring and summer brings. And that's what we worked on with the state as far as seeing that. But as far as introducing anything
No,
like
I
that.
just was curious. But one question I do have, these were sterile carp. I mean, that was a big deal. A lot of people want to know what's going to happen. So I know you don't count them, but have they indeed all not been procreating? Please tell me.
We are not aware of any Jurassic Park,
No, I just, it seems that there's so many of them.
Yeah, so there's, and the lake has two types of carp in it also. There are the common carp that are in there that don't feed on vegetation, and there are also the grass carp. The state does electroshock fishing, and they were out there last year, so they do fish studies. There have been no sightings. There have been no sightings of juvenile young grass carp. I mean, this is and the federal government oversees this sterilization program as well. So it's pretty closely regulated. So, but there's been no evidence of anything unusual.
Thank you for all that you do to keep the lake as beautiful as it is.
Barbara?
A question and a comment. I wondered if you had a count of how many of the sterile grass carp are left. I can't remember if they were tagged or not, but I see you didn't budget for any this year.
Yeah, so there were a total of roughly 8,000 that were stocked, and that was, they were stocked the state has a permit process to stock them, and they calculate the number of fish based on the vegetation. And so that's where we got that 8,000 number. They do attribute a certain amount of attrition to the carp every year. We do not have an understanding of how many are left. It's too hard to figure that out. There's just sort of ballpark guesses. We know certainly some of them are slowly dying off. But probably more of those died off early when they were younger, and they're probably more established now as far as their population, and lose less now. We don't have an estimate of the number that are left.
What year did they go in?
So we had two stocking years, 2015 and 2017, and it was
Maybe live 15 years. Okay.
15 or so years. Yeah. So the first ones are going on 6 years old, I guess, or something like that. So so they've got a little time left. Yeah.
Barbara, you test for glyphosate in that water, right? Because that's the only thing that springs to mind when you say all of a sudden there was a ton of milfoil and then there was none. Is something like that?
Is that you mean like a herbicide chemical? So so we don't test for that, but the amount of when we first looked into lake-wide options as far as milfoil control, we looked into all different options. One of them was herbicide treatments, and to do the lake, to control the lake, it was. I don't remember the number, but I think it approached $1 million, or it was hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's a very expensive process to go through. So there wouldn't be anything on that level that could have impacted the lake enough would have required extensive application, and it's not that you can.
It's thinking of things that regular people can get their hands on, and I know that people love to use that to knock off the lily pads in smaller bodies of water, because it's just a bad look when they start to have this.
It's not something that we think has had any impact on the lake. I mean, as I mentioned, they would need to get a permit from the state to do any herbicide application in the water, but anything that would have an impact, that big of an impact on the lake, would have needed to have been pretty extensive, and that didn't happen. No.
And my last comment was, I see you gave up the fax line. How are you doing without that?
It's tough because I don't get any more free cruises sent to us or anything like that. So it's been rough, but we're adjusting.
I'm glad to see that you're willing to sacrifice for that for the sake of the budget. Thank you.
Hillary?
Can I tell you guys something that will blow your mind?
Hillary, hang on 1 second, Diane. Hillary had a question. She had the floor.
Just quick. In addition to the municipalities getting together and getting on the same page, which I think is very wise, is your website loaded with information? It sounds like there's a lot of interest here and probably people watching. Is your website informational for people to come and see what they should be doing on their yards, in front of their lakes, and in all these capacities?
Absolutely. We just went through a website redesign last year.
Fabulous.
And modernized it and refreshed all the content and all the material that's out there.
And we have a printed guide as well. We have it available if anybody wants them, but it's also in PDF format on our website, and 15 things that you can do to help protect the lake. So it's a really informative guide for waterfront homeowners, especially.
So Mark, as we have the live feed here, if you could go ahead and put in your email address, what it would be.
Oh, the
or
website?
Your address, website address?
Yeah, sure. It's candlewoodlakeauthority.org.
Okay. Yeah. Diane, did you have something?
OMG. Pete, I have such an amazing thing to say. So, if you're traveling, I live on the north side of, this is north side, the north side of the lake. And if I'm traveling down towards, what's the name of that crappy restaurant on the lake?
Down the hatch.
Thank you, down the hatch. If I'm traveling down to that, to my left, to my right, there is an island. There's an island. And the island is a really small kind of thing, and there's a house on it, and there's kind of a dock. And my husband and I've always wondered, how do you get over there? You'd have to, there's no electricity. You'd have to, park your car on the tail end of the peninsula there. It's so messed up. And it turns out that Walter O'Connor, our chairman of the finance board, Walter O'Connor, grew up on that island. Which you can't get to unless you have some sort of a agreement with someone who has the property to the south of it. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Diane,
So,
since you brought my name
it's
up into this, the island was not in Candlewood Lake. It is
on
local.
Candlewood
It was
Lake.
in Putnam Lake,
It's
just
on
over the New
Candlewood
York
Lake.
border.
Oh, Putnam Lake, he's saying.
So,
No, it's on Candlewood Lake. Hello? Totally. Who's talking?
I know.
Original owner of that had an amphibious.
Oh my God, there's so much noise, I can't even understand who's saying what.
Do we have any other?
Okay, are we done?
Any other questions?
Walter, you gonna say anything? Walter O'Connor grew up
No,
on
I'm done,
that
Diane.
Okay. Walter, I'll let you start off with recessing us.
Thank you very much for your
Yep.
support. Thank you for all the cooperation, the partnership.
Oh, okay.
I do have one informational item I'd like to leave you with. While we were doing our budgets, subsequent to passing all the municipalities our budget, we did an action outside of the budget, and we have an item we want to inform you of. We're not asking for any more money, but we just want you to be aware of it. We will contain that item inside this budget. Our executive committee asked us to evaluate and position our executive director's role against the market and make sure we had the roles and responsibilities clearly outlined. As a result of that, we did do a one-time salary adjustment to this fine gentleman here. That was not in this budget, but we will contain it within this budget. We just wanted you to know that, just in case you heard about an item you
And
might
could
not
you
have seen in
let
this
the
budget.
council and finance know, could you email me what that adjustment ends up being numerically?
Sure, I'll do that.
Excellent, and I can give it to the council and board of finance.
Okay.
Excellent.
Motion-
Walter?
Oh, that Walter.
Yeah, Walter.
Oh, no, I was just.
Oh, okay. All right.
Woo, right here.
Walter?
Thank you all for your patience.
Absolutely,
The last
thank you.
presenter.
Thank you.
A motion from the Board of Finance to recess until Tuesday, February 28th at 7 PM. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And for the town council, motion to recess to Tuesday, February 28th, 7 PM. Do I have a second? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Good night,
First
everyone.
time I was on the Board of Finance.